Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Beta Change Minisode. Today, I am really excited to welcome Debbie from Debbie's Diabetes Hub on Twitter. She's really passionate about diabetes advocacy, and she's had type 1 for over 20 years. So, Debbie, welcome. I also recently just learned that you are running the NGDOC diabetes organization, which is so exciting. So I'm really excited to talk to you about that. Would you like to introduce yourself to us and maybe let us know what you've been up to since coronavirus? I know you've had a lot of things going on, so we're excited to hear about that.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Deborah, but you can call me Debbie. I am the founder of Debbie Diabetes Up on Twitter, and I'm also the Chief Operating Officer for Nigeria Diabetic Online Community. I live in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an human and animal nutritional consultant, and I'm also a diabetes advocate. I've been for almost 20 years. Have been living with type 1 diabetes for over 20 years. I am so passionate about it because the part of the world I live in, there's no too much of awareness, and just because of a bit of information, not something much, just because of a bit of information, a lot of people are losing their lives, a lot of people have died, and I'm very passionate about access to good health care, access to basic good health care for people living with diabetes. And I hope this section of this interview will add up to part of the advocate work that I've been doing for years. Thank you.
I wanted to ask you more about why you wanted to get involved in diabetes advocacy, because I think sometimes people with diabetes, it's like an advocacy is like a whole different thing than just living with diabetes. So I was wondering if you feel that way, and maybe if you wanted to tell everybody how you started to maybe get involved in advocating for these amazing issues that you are working on.
How I got involved in advocacy was because when was first diagnosed in year 2000, even the healthcare practitioner around me can't even give me basic information on how to manage my diabetes well. That drove me into doing personal research and going on a journey of what and how to live with type 1 diabetes. Along the line, I discovered that most of the health practitioners in this part of the world do not have an idea of what type 1 is. They have an idea of what diabetes is generally, which is the type 2 or the type 2 diabetes that is known, but most do not have an idea that there is something that is
Mm-hmm.
juvenile and something that does not have a cure and you can reverse. You have to manage it all your life. So that drove me into start talking about it. When I started to have access to the internet, then I opened the Diabetes social media platform, and I started talking about it and supporting advocate work and being all out there. And I have a lot of people offline that come to me and do ask me, how why is it that it's not even showing that you're living a normal life, you're pursuing your dream, you are so energetic, and it gives me an opportunity to talk about it and give a voice to it. So that is one of the major reasons that made me to advocate for it. And right now, years before, I wasn't actively advocating for it, but right now, since like 2 years, I've been actively involved because I noticed that despite the fact that the world is evolving and a lot of things is happening, the diabetes space is still underknown, and a lot of people, especially in
Mm-hmm.
Africa, is not really aware of especially type 1 diabetes. And the ones that got diagnosed with it sees it as a death sentence, which is not. Like I always tell people, it's just a disability. The same way just something happens and it changes your life, and you take charge of it, and you plan your life and start living with it and finding the best way to maximize life. So that's those are the reasons why I become very active for
Mhm.
diabetes, for type 1 diabetes advocate.
That's amazing, Debbie. I think you've mentioned like some of the challenges that people face in your area with diabetes. Um, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and how the work that you're doing is addressing them. I know that, so with Beta Change, we're mostly an online platform, but also that, and that's great
Yeah.
because we can reach people, and talk to people who are all over the world. But that is also limiting because not everybody has access to the technology or the internet or whatever that is that we want to talk to people. So I think especially with coronavirus happening, it's really hard to like do more in-person things. So I kind of was wondering like if you could tell us a little bit about the approach for the NG diabetes community.
One of the challenges that we have, one of the major challenges that we have is a religious mindset. So for years, there's been this religion propaganda about the fact that any disease can be healed. And a lot of people, because Africa civilization is centered around religions and missionaries, so most of the things that we do in Africa, especially in this part of the world, has always been the religious space has always been a huge part of the decisions. So most people, before they make any decision, when anything happens to them, their religious leader is who they talk to first. They believe in more than the medical people or the people that are experts in that particular field. So it's really a struggle before you can convince an average Nigerian that whatever it is that they are going through doesn't have a cure, and they need to learn how to live with it. They would rather pray about it. They would rather talk to their spiritual leader, which most of the time they are not helping. They would rather do all those stuff and neglect the knowledge to learn or the knowledge that they need to have to be able to live well and effectively with diabetes. So that one has been a major challenge for me because I had to go on a journey. I had to be very religious and be very spiritual too to actually learn what is there. When I discovered that most of the time people are just too lazy to find out all those things for themselves, that there is nothing religious about being diligent about your health. It gave me another different knowledge and perspective to be able to talk to people in that space because I always tell them that God is not a wicked person. He gave the knowledge to the medical practitioner so that everybody can have access to it, either you are religious or not. That is one of the major. The second challenge is poverty. Is most families in this part of the world are living below um, the the minimum wage of stuff, and to be able to effectively manage diabetes. Diabetes is expensive, not just the insulin medication. The testing strip over here is pretty expensive. Then the diet to be able to eat well and eat healthily is pretty expensive. So those two challenges make make the advocate work seems a bit slow and a bit hard. But when I joined Nigerian Diabetes Online Community, one of the things that I discussed when it was being proposed to me that I should take over the organization, one of the things I spoke with the former chairman is that we need to empower people financially. We need to empower people with skill so that when we empower them, we let them know that this skill that you are acquiring is majorly for you to be able to take care of your diabetes and to be able to have resources to get all the medical whatever that you need so that you can live elderly. Then your other skill or your other profession cannot take care of your everyday needs. Like I always tell them, you can't be in Nigeria and survive on just one skill. You have to have something by the side. So one of the things I discussed with him is that we need to train people, get them involved in a good skill, and bring in financial experts or um, entrepreneurs that will train them on how to manage those skills and earn either online or offline. When that one is in place, when their finances is settled, then it's easier for us to now be able to help them with their diabetes management. So most of the work that we do right now in Nigeria Diabetes Online community is number one to be a hub for people offline mostly because a lot of these juvenile they don't have access to the internet. So we do a lot of work offline to be able to have somewhere where they can come to and talk about their challenges. Most of these kids they have challenges with relationship. Most of the females have challenges with hormones, their period, sex, and all that.
Mhm.
So we make sure that we provide a place where they can come and ask questions because all of us in that organization we are type 1 diabetes too. Then we now create we have a place where they can come to that we can teach them the basic skill like team player skill, communication skill. All those things helps them place them better where they can get jobs and they can link with other people. Then we now take it further. We have a plan for this year, even for the coronavirus, to actually register them up for them to learn good marketable skill that when
Mhm.
they finish learning it, you can then set them up with a bit of capital that they can use. And we deliberately tell them that that particular skill and that particular business is for diabetes management, not for any other thing. So when that one is taken care of, then the future does not look as hopeless as it is for an average Nigerian type 1 diabetic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, Debbie. That's a really great way to look at kind of the future and how you can set up like a next generation of people to be
Mhm.
able to take care of themselves. Um, what are some of the skills that you're teaching them, or what are some of the marketable skills that they walk away with?
So we are looking at cake making. Like cake making is not just about making cakes, it's about personalizing people's experience in celebration. We are looking at cake making. We are looking at sending some of them to an entrepreneurial school where they can learn how to build a business around any skill at all. Because we notice that even being a graduate in this part of the world does not guarantee you a job. There's lots of graduates that are not employable. And for a type 1 diabetic person, there is no room for no income because no income means no insulin. No insulin means death, literally. So we have two major skills now. The first one is people that want to do business or they are not really educated and they don't have a certification. They train them on how to be an entrepreneur. That means any skill that you pick, either it is dressmaking or it is event planning or it is breeding or it is food selling, they teach you on how to effectively build a business around that skill and be able to market yourself. Then the second one is if you want to go into corporate or social event planning, or you want to learn how to be a project manager, you want to learn how to be a fundraiser, or you want to learn how to just be a cake person, anything that has to do with event, then there's another place where they can effectively learn from it.
Are you familiar with the Insulin for All movement? Have you done any work with that group at all?
Yeah, okay. So Nigerian Diabetes Online community is actually in partnership with T1 International and Sonia Nadia Foundation. I still had an online meeting with both of them yesterday. So we are doing advocate work with them. So we have representative from NGDOC, which is Nigerian Diabetes Online community that works in partnership with myself with them, and we have yearly project that we do. We've been working together for like 3 years now, and we are still. Yesterday, we still had an online meeting with my team and their own team to talk about the next thing to do, despite the COVID-19 in Nigeria. So yes, so I work with Elizabeth and I work with Vivian from both organizations.
Oh, that's great. I know Elizabeth. I've known her
Mm,
for many years, and I've met Vivian at some events here in the US. So I'm
mm,
excited that you're working with them because I think one of the great things about diabetes actually is like meeting amazing people who are trying to change this
yes,
need because it shouldn't be that
yes,
you have to have an income for to get insulin. I
yes,
really think that
yes,
that needs to change, and that's
yes,
like a really important movement. So I'm glad that there is some, unity and partnership there. I think that's really terrific that that's happening.
mm,
Um,
yes.
and that everybody, can kind of work toward that same goal. I was wondering, Debbie, how can the rest of the diabetes online community, either in Nigeria or outside Nigeria, support the work that you're doing? Do you think there are more things that people can do who maybe even don't have diabetes but might be interested in, helping this kind of advocacy work that we're doing?
Yeah, y- yes. For those parts of the world, we need a lot of things. Like before the COVID, myself and the former person in charge before he stepped down, we're talking about how to raise funds. He is in New York, though he's a Nigerian, but he's in New York, one of the founders. So we're talking about how to maybe instead of him having his birthday this year, we should use it to raise funds so that because the Nigerian diabetes online community do not have a physical office. So when I took over, I told them that we cannot stay online because of the part of the world that we are in. A lot of people do not have access to the internet. Even if you have access to it, it's very, very expensive
Right.
to, yes, like an average internet, if you want to enjoy internet access in a month is between 150 and $200, which is pretty much for an average person over here. So
Yeah.
we're talking about, yeah, we're talking about how, and that is minus your phone call. The phone call is separate from the internet over here. So you have
That's
to do
just
the
the
subscription
internet.
separately. Yeah, that's just the
Oh,
internet.
yeah.
So you have to
It's
do it
crazy.
separately here. Is very expensive. So
Yeah.
he was talking about if he could use his birthday as a platform to be able to raise some money so that we can get some basic office equipment, then we can get some stuff to have an office offline so that people in this part of the world can benefit more because they are not benefiting much since we are just on the airspace. Then another thing that
Okay.
we need help for is to be able to have syringe, um, glucometer, then to be able to have fun, to be able to sponsor more people for the skill acquisition and the entrepreneurial training. And because of the COVID, we had to suspend it a bit because the whole world is trying to navigate this whole pandemic. So we didn't talk about we discussed last about it in January and we discussed it later. We said we're going to suspend it until this whole COVID and the vaccine and everything comes on board. But because the major challenge in this particular part of the world is finances, is literally not just finances, not just money, things that people need. Like some people, I know like 90% of people do not even test their blood sugar every day. Some test it
Oh, yeah.
two times a month, some test it one time in a month, some test it only when they go to their doctors. And I keep on asking them, how do you people administer your insulin by going blind? Because I know that me, and on an average of 3 to 5 times a day, I do check. And most of these kids, they are not even checking at all. Most of them do not have the machine. Most of them do not have access to. I understand because the test strip and the machine are pretty expensive because everything that we
Right.
use has to be in dollars and it's being exchanged to our naira, and that is because our naira has a lot of devaluation going on right now. That's a whole lot of challenge. Then during the pandemic, the insulin price doubled because of the dollar exchange rate and all that. So if we can get a company that will give insulin, that will give test strip, that will give needles, that will give glucometer, then probably money to sponsor to get more kids to be able to acquire skill. and to be able to set them up in business, it will go a very, very long way.
And Debbie, can people donate to the NGDOC itself?
Yet, yes, people can donate to NGDOC itself. People can donate, though we don't have um, an online platform where people can put anything, but it can be set up. But people can donate to NGDoc.
Yeah, because I think sometimes people want to help, but they don't know how. Or like, I think people in the diabetes community, especially on Twitter, are, we talk to each other and it's easy to form these connections with people, but sometimes we want to help each other with projects that we're doing or with advocacy work. So I feel like sometimes it's harder to have like a concrete plan for how someone can help but when there are these things that you need or that people are working toward, it's like easier to maybe get involvement from other people if they can do like a simple action. So it's very multi-layered and it's a very thankless work sometimes, but I'm really glad
Yes,
that we're able to talk to you about it, because hopefully we can spread more awareness about this work that you're doing, so that people
yes,
can support it. I wanted to ask you about what positive things have happened in your life because of diabetes. Would you want to tell us maybe about some things that are positive that have happened that may not have
yes.
happened otherwise?
There is one thing about living with type 1 diabetes when you have to take multiple injections daily. You have to face the emotional turbulence. You have to face as a woman, especially the hormonal changes and all that. It just builds resilience over time. It just builds this kind of strong emotional strength, because you know that even your loved ones cannot help you um, be positive. You have to draw that strength from within. The the decision of almost everything that you make are deliberate, because it's like you know that you don't have too much of strength, you don't have too much of energy, you don't have too much of excess anything like the average, especially when you're 18. When you have it, when you're still a teenager, you know that you don't have the liberty of taking drugs or taking alcohol or just living the normal youthful delinquent stuff. So it makes you to be like more mature. For me, it quickly made me to know what matters. So I'm deliberate about what are the things that matters in life. I focus on them. It made me not to really seek people's validation or opinion, because every single day the challenges are real, and they are and you can't explain it. So it made me to be focused. It made me to be, people see me and say, wow, you're strong. I always tell them I don't have a choice. I have to be strong. It makes me to build a life and a world for myself that is for myself. And I bring people into it to enjoy it. So it made me to be more empathic, because I go through hard reality daily. Today's reality is different from tomorrow. And it made me, when I see people going through stuff, it makes me to be empathic. I can feel their pain. I can feel what they go through, and it makes me to be given, to be forgiven, because you just realize that that person that is behaving in a shitty way to you might be going through some stuff that they can't explain. Because most of the time, when I'm in the midst of people and I'm going through a low blood sugar, or I'm going through emotional turmoil, I'm going through internal thing that is related to type 1 and I can't explain it, people do not understand. So when I see other people behaving in a particular way or reacting in a way that is not really okay, I just always thought to myself, maybe that person is going through something that I'm not aware of, because type 1 is an invisible disease that many people might not even know you are going through it, and is more real than most things that people are facing. So it just made me to be more loving, more
Mhm.
kind to myself, kind to the world around me. I'm more empathic, always and always put myself in other people's shoes, and always try to be available. to people, then it makes me to be present because you are not promised tomorrow. So every single day, I make sure that I live it and I maximize it to the fullest, and I just be me. So it's one of the if I really want to say, it's one of the greatest gifts. It might look like it's a negative thing,
Mm.
but it's one of the greatest gifts. It keeps me focused. It keeps me sharp. It keeps me because it keeps me responsible. If you want to live long with type 1, then you have to be responsible. You get your insulin, you make sure you are eating right, you make sure you have sugary things around you to correct a low. When you are going on a travel, you are very deliberate, you are very particular. So it just keeps me sharp and focused. And then that one makes achieving stuff easier. Unlike the
Mm.
people in my age space that they are still not deciding on what to do. Me, I know exactly what I want and what I want to do, and so it's it has really helped me with a lot of positive things.
That's amazing, Debbie. That's so inspiring. You articulated like some of the things that I think are hard sometimes to like
Mm, mm,
express with when you have diabetes, and I think it can be, really hard to take something that makes us so tired and exhausted, and
mm,
I feel like I forget that I'm more tired than, some other people, right, who don't have diabetes. Like we are like really tired because
yes, really tired.
it keeps
Mhm.
literally keeps us up at night, right? Sometimes, if
Yes,
and so I think, being able to look at those beautiful parts of it is a really nice thing and hard
mm,
thing to do. But
yes.
for people in the advocacy space, especially, that's why I don't know. That may be, is that why you do it? Like that's why I want to do it, because of the positive
That's why I
things,
want
I
to
think,
do it,
right?
yes, because so that it makes it easier for the people that will be diagnosed later. When they come newly into type 1 and they can have those basic information, then it makes it easier. They don't have to learn through experience. Since we've learned through experience, that we can share those experience and make life
Right.
easier. It's not easy. Diabetes is never easy. But having those basic information that you don't need to live 5 years to learn about how to manage an hypo or an hyper, you get, and you know what to do, how to eat, what to do when your period is not coming, those little things that will make their life easier is the
Hmm.
reason why I do the advocate, just to make it easier. Is not is a lifelong thing, and just make every step easier for the people that are coming and the people that are still young, to explain the realities, because most of the time we focus on the medical part, and there are a whole other part that is tough. Like, I lost my marriage 3 years ago just because of diabetes. So if anybody's
Um,
coming and is young, I let them know that it's fine if it happens. It can happen if there is a possibility because of our culture in this part of the world. So, but it's okay. It's not the end of the road. You pick yourself up, you dust yourself. It was the diabetes that kept me going, because I know that I can't sleep for 1 week and be crying. The diabetes will remind me that I have to take insulin, I have to
mm,
treat my hypo. So it kept me going. So that you have diabetes, it's a disability. You just need to just look for a ray of light, a small light, and focus on it and pull yourself out of that. And you keep on moving, you keep on moving. At the end of it all, when it's time to leave or to transit, you will have known that you lived despite despite the disability. That's just why I'm here. Why when I've gone through stuff like that, I really want to share what I've been through. I really want to use that knowledge and give it to some other people that are just coming into those challenges, so that it become easier, so that they can navigate it and come out of it and all that.
well, thank you for sharing that, Debbie. I'm sorry, that that was your experience, and it can be so hard sometimes, right? That like diabetes
Mm,
is like in all these parts of our lives, so it affects
mm,
our relationships and it affects our work even, or stuff like that. And I think that can be like one of the
yeah.
hardest things, other than just managing it every day. It's like
Mm,
trying to work with all this other stuff. So thank you so much for
mm,
telling us about it. I think that's really
You're welcome.
inspiring. you know.
Yeah.
Debbie, is there anything else you'd want to share about the work you're doing at Nigerian Diabetes Online Community, or about your other projects, about your dogs, anything like that you want to tell us about?
No, really, I'm really hoping that this COVID and the journey to discover a vaccine will be swift, because one of the realization that I'm coming into is just that COVID has come to stay, and it might be normal for people that do not have an underlying condition, but for an average diabetes person, especially type 1, that is really a huge challenge, coupled with the fact that there's been a lot of issues about cheaper insulin and accessibility to insulin. So I really hope that, for the sake of people that that are in my reality space, that means people that, especially people with type 1 diabetes, that the vaccine will come on time, and it will be very cheap and accessible, and we won't need to fight for
Yeah.
it the way we're fighting for cheaper insulin, and so that
Oh,
at least it won't be an added battle. Yeah, the vaccine will be available, so that we don't need to add that one to the challenge of living with type 1 diabetes. Because if the vaccine is not in place and is not accessible, it's going to be a real challenge for people, especially the upcoming ones, to be able to live well with type 1 diabetes, which is not our fault. It's not anything that we did or we did not
mhm.
do. It was
Right.
an autoimmune thing. So I'm really hoping that's one of my hope goals this year, that by this time next year, all this COVID will have been settled, and people, because most people, as much as we talk about diabetes management, some people do not have the mental strength to be very, very disciplined when it comes to what to do and not what to do with type 1 diabetes. And for those kind of people, it's because the diabetes thing can be overwhelming for them, especially the young people. And COVID becomes a very fatal situation if it comes near them. So I'm really hoping that this whole COVID business will be sorted out. Then we continue our advocate about cheaper insulin and access to insulin for all. Thank you.
Debbie, thank you so much for joining us. It's been really
Thanks,
great to
Katie.
have you. Thank you for responding to my Twitter message. I was just so excited to see the work that you were doing, and that we have some friends in common in the diabetes space. We'd love to have you on
Yes,
again. So hopefully, we could maybe do an update with you, because
please do.
I think that COVID is also an opportunity to innovate for a lot of like groups. And I think it's like a good opportunity for people to like talk about what they're doing to kind of navigate this new challenge. So
Yes. Mm,
I hope we can talk to you in the future about what you're doing. It's a good way to like collaborate with each other too, I feel like, because
yes.
we can
Yes.
share our
Mm,
resources and ideas and stuff like that. So
yes. Please
it's
do.
really cool.
Anytime. I'm available.
Thank you so much, Debbie. This has been great. Yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.